Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Jeremy P. McGhee podcast, whatever this is. It is sponsored by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. This beer right here in my hand is the Hazy Little Thing IPA. I believe this is the #1 most popular IPA in the nation. If it's not, it's #2 and should be #1. All my friends are always hitting me up. Hey man, you got little hazies? You got little hazies? If you've never had this, get some. It's fucking good. And Summerfest just came out for the summer. That is a really nice, easy drinking summer lager. And whatever you get from them. Oh, I really like their hop splash. It's water. It's carbonated water with hop flavor. So on the days when you're trying not to drink, or if you're trying to drink a little less, or if you just want to have something in your hand, it's the perfect thing for that. I love it. It's actually kind of hard to get. You got to go to Sierra Nevada brewing.com. I think that's their website. Go to the Sierra Nevada website and get some hop splash. I'm kind of addicted, to be honest with you. But whatever you get from them, you can feel good about it because they support your boy. Okay, now let's get into today's podcast. This is a very special episode. I actually went to Asheville, North Carolina for the first time and had one hell of a time. I got there, I pulled right into the Sierra Nevada Brewery. Yes, Sierra has a brewery in Asheville. They have one, the original is in Chico, and there's now one in Asheville to service the eastern United States. And it is so nice. If you've never been to Asheville, you gotta go. The place is special. I'm actually considering spending a lot more time there because I fell in love with the place. Get to Asheville, bring your bike, bring your hiking shoes, make sure you go to DuPont, Pisgah National Forest. If you've got your bike with you, make sure you ride, there's a couple bike parks. I can't remember their names off the top of my head. Just great riding, great people, and you've got the Sierra Nevada Brewery right there, so make sure you go check it out. So I pull right into town, I go to the brewery and get the full VIP treatment. We go on the full tour. There was a production company there called Out of Collective. They have a podcast too, the Out of Podcast. And so what we did was we filmed the brewery tour, we sat down and recorded a podcast. And then the next day, the next day we went riding together. It was epic. These guys are rad. The Adam Jabber is the guy's name. I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry, Adam, if I'm mispronouncing your last name. I've actually never heard it said aloud. Anyways, this episode is that conversation for the Out of Collective podcast in its entirety. And here it is. Enjoy.
Jeremy, tell people who you are, a little bit about yourself, and then we can kind of take it from there.
Who am I?
Yeah, philosophically.
I am a blind worm crawling on my belly. That's what I am. Man, I don't know. I guess I'm a pro athlete. That just kind of happened.
Yeah.
Originally from San Diego.
Okay.
Living part-time in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Okay.
Working as a consultant.
Okay.
There. And an adventure seeker.
Okay.
Lover of people.
Okay. That's a big ask. That last part is probably the hardest bit out of everything, for me at least.
You're right. I've been working on it. I actually kind of had, in so many words, kind of have lost my faith in humanity for a while.
Yeah.
Things are weird.
Yeah.
And I've really been focusing on the good and how creative and cool people are.
Yeah.
And focusing more on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you start losing faith in some of humanity? I mean, it's tough. We're not going to focus just on the negative here. We're going to focus on some of the positive. But I think a lot of people felt the last 3 years kind of felt the same way.
That's exactly it. I mean, I think I have a propensity to be a glass half empty type person. And so it takes work for me to look at the other side. And so, everything, and then, just witnessing the evil that we're all capable of.
Yeah.
And all the division and all the hate and all the polarization, which is just insanity to me. But we're all equally evil and equally good at the same time, riding this razor's edge. And just, if I'm going to be a realist, you see both sides,
Yeah. I feel like that word has gotten a lot of, it's a very complicated word sometimes, being a realist, right? I feel like people hear it and they go, oh, that person's negative.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not always the case. It's very much, I try to consider myself a realist as much as possible, but a lot of times it just comes off as negative because so much of it is trying to find the good as opposed to just naturally seeing the good. And I think it's a difficult thing for me sometimes.
Yeah, and if you're going to consider, whatever outcome for whatever situation, and you say you're a realist, that the implication is that you're understanding how it could go wrong.
Right.
But it could equally go right.
Yeah.
And so you're exactly right.
How did you end up in the position that you're in? You're an athlete. You've made a career out of this to this point. You're consulting. You're doing all kinds of shit. So where did you see this going the way that it's going right now? Like when you were, go back to 18-year-old Jeremy, right? Like, were you planning on doing this kind of thing?
I didn't know my face from my ass when I was 18, bro. Oh, and I say that truthfully. I didn't really have any parenting growing up, so I have had to learn. I wasn't provided any tools from my parents, and so I've had to learn kind of how to be a man with integrity, like later in life, on my own. Yep. Super immature.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 18-year-old Jeremy, I feel like I've just been a kind of a ping pong ball, without having parents that could help me understand, what I'm good at, and maybe pursue a direction. I've just kind of been a product of my environments and bouncing around. It's been a really fun life. Let me tell you that. And I've lived hard.
Yeah.
And seen a lot of things and experienced a lot of things. So I wouldn't give that up ever.
Yeah.
But it's kind of taken me. That's why I'm like a 46-year-old pro athlete. I didn't kind of realize that was the direction I should go in until kind of later in life. And how did I end up here? Man, it has been like a sequence of crazy events. I was in a motorcycle accident in 2001 and paralyzed from that. Almost didn't live through it, so that's a whole crazy experience in and of itself. Before that, I was working as a lifeguard, waiting tables at a really cool restaurant, and snowboarding as much as possible, surfing as much as possible. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, even into my mid-20s.
Yeah.
I was considering most likely going to become a career lifeguard. That's kind of the direction I was going. And then I got my wreck. And then since then, the way things happened, I ended up moving to Mammoth because I thought I wanted to pursue skiing. And then living in Mammoth, everyone mountain bikes in the summer. It becomes a bike park. And everybody rides. Yeah. So I got an adaptive bike for the first time in 2007.
Yep.
And then have been through several different bikes. Like the evolution of adaptive bikes since then has been crazy. And then all the different bikes I've had, they're so different and so cool. I ended up, getting way out in the backcountry and stuff on these bikes and going on adventures and getting stuck.
Yeah.
And getting into some really precarious situations. I've even been helicoptered out
Really?
before. Yeah. Yeah, just bad.
What happened there?
I was actually in my home canyon in San Diego. Canyon I grew up exploring as a kid. I know it really, really well. And I was, you know, it's always this decision if there's a new trail for me. Am I going to go down it or not? Mm-hmm. And I was just kind of in an adventurous mood. I actually think I was angry. And I was like, kind of F it. I'm just going to go down this trail. I don't care what happens. And it ended up in a no trail.
Okay.
Like basically the trail just ended. And I ended up like upside down in this creek bed. And imagine being a paraplegic.
Yeah.
Like getting this big bike out of this creek bed, you know. Like when you lift something, like you've got your feet on the ground, you've got base, right?
Right.
Well, for me, like sitting in my chair right now, I can feel the back of my chair, you know. But if I lean forward and I raise my hands, like I can't feel anything I'm touching. I'm kind of floating in the air is what it feels like.
Yeah.
And there's no base.
It's so bizarre.
So imagine like trying to lift and move something heavy.
Yeah.
And so I'd get the bike. I would get the bike out and kind of drag it to a clearing. My pants are coming off because I'm scooting on the ground, you know, and trying to keep my pants on. And I get it to a clearing, get back on it, fall back over because it keeps getting pulled, you know, into the creek and fall back over. Get it to a clearing, and it was about, I want to say like 2.5 hours of fighting, bushwhacking. Paraplegic bushwhacking with this huge big thing, you know. 2.5 hours. It was 94 degrees. I fall over again, and I end up upside down in a cactus full of black widows with my chain broken. And I was like, I'm done. Like, I am dehydrated. I need water. This has been 2.5 hours, and I made the call. And I got helicoptered out.
That's fucking crazy. And you were by yourself?
I was by myself.
Holy fucking shit.
So that's a pretty extreme situation, and I got endless stories of things like that happening. I got stuck in a flash flood one time. That was crazy. So, you know, I'm having these experiences, and I'm online researching, like, okay, what trails can I ride safely?
Yeah.
And I just was coming up empty-handed.
Yeah.
And then I called up Trail Forks. I'm like, hey, what do you guys think about, you know, documenting this information? And they were all in. So we developed a very simplified rating system.
Okay.
That is now being accepted. Trail Forks implemented it, and it's now being accepted, you know, more and more around the world. So that's pretty fun to be a part of. And then I just started documenting my trail experiences, making videos.
Okay.
And then in that, my name kind of got out there, I guess, as a quote-unquote expert, trail expert. And I start getting consulting gigs.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of gone from there.
On how to make things like more accessible for adaptive athletes, or what? Like, tell me about what that process is like. It's
a very involved, complex process, actually. One, I'm not riding trails as myself. When I'm performing an audit or an assessment on a trail network, I'm riding as the average rider, the mean,
right?
Because everything's got to be based on a curve, you know. Because the gamut of the adaptive rider spectrum is extremely broad.
Yeah.
And so, one, having a grasp of that, of all the equipment, you know, the gamut of disabilities, you know, things like that is really important. And with all that information in mind, riding as a rider that's, you know, not me.
Yeah.
You know, so, and then also bidirectionally, you know, it's a really interesting process. And then the major goal usually with an assessment, a trail assessment, is to identify what I call the low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
Usually there's just a couple spots that will stop and adapt. Trails are all good except for maybe a pinch point or something like that, you know. So identifying that stuff, and therefore, you know, opening up the maximum amount of mileage with the least amount of work.
Yeah.
And never being irresponsible from, you know, not only an environmental standpoint, but also from a trail experience and the goals of a trail standpoint. You know, we never want to change the nature of the experience of a trail.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. That's one of the things, like, I do a bunch of ski testing, a bunch of bike testing, and everybody thinks that what makes a good tester is being good at the sport, like being really good. But what makes a good tester is being able to go, okay, this person that's buying a $399 ski is skiing different than somebody who's buying a $1,000 ski, right? Most of the time, that person is less experienced. They're looking for something to make their life easier. And the performance is totally different. So I think taking that kind of thing into account is what makes a good tester a lot of times, right? Like, especially if you're going to be a broad tester and you want to kind of test all kinds of different stuff. So I imagine some of that is the same. It's one of the most
100%.
difficult things to do is put yourself in somebody else's shoes that
100%.
is not you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that reminds me. When I was living in Mammoth, I was teaching skiing a lot, and we had basically the best sit skier to ever live, like, come teach us how to be teachers.
Yep.
You know, this guy's insane. So we're on the beginner run. I got this. I'm in my sit ski. You know? I got a big old fat ski on, of course. You know, and we're on the beginner run, learning how to do like beginner demos of the beginner rotary turns.
Yeah.
And so here I am, like, trying to keep this big old fat ski flat. And I was like, oh my God, it's taking all my arm strength, and I'm really struggling.
Yeah.
To do a beginner turn, you know? And this guy skis, he's in a sit ski.
Yeah.
Skis past me, spins around, is skiing switch in front of me. He's not paying attention to his skiing at all. He's instructing me. He's like, okay, Jeremy, like, try to, and he's talking with his hands. Like, his outriggers are up off the snow.
Yeah.
You've seen sit skis
Yeah,
have
yeah,
outriggers.
yeah.
He's skiing switch in the sit ski without his outriggers and not even thinking about it.
It's crazy.
That was insane.
It's crazy to see, like, how much the perception of what an athlete can do, whether it's a paraplegic athlete or somebody that's using some kind of adaptive equipment, like, over the last 5, 6, 7 years, I think a lot of people have brought, like yourself, have brought a little more attention to that and been like, okay, we want to do stuff, right? So what's going to make that more accessible? What's going to make the gear better? How do we implement stuff and pay attention to it more? And I think the mass media in the outdoors has started to care a lot more about it too. And I mean, there's obviously, like, Trevor Kinnison is a good example, right? It's like,
that guy's insane.
He's an insane person. And I think it's just that he's nuts. Like, I genuinely think he's just an insane.
He's young.
He's young. He's an insane person. And he just, sometimes I think he doesn't give a shit, right? But what he's doing in a lot of ways is pushing the boundaries of what people are aware is possible, you know, in this kind of category of life. So it's insane to watch.
He's insane to watch. I don't think anyone will ever send it. Ever.
Yeah.
It'll be a long time before there's anybody that can touch what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's pretty. Yeah, not only is he insane, but he's an extremely talented athlete. And you combine those things, and yeah.
It's onto a next level. What has changed for you, like, throughout this process, right? Like, it's not, you haven't always been in the same position. So how have you adapted what you do to make the experience better over the past, I don't know, say the last 10 years? Like, what has changed in the gear that you use, in the way that you approach things? That's kind of what I'm curious about, right? Because everybody's so focused on what gear has changed for the masses, right? Like, well, okay, skis change year to year, bikes change year to year, and there's all this progression. You mentioned to me, like, about the bike being way better than it was when you first started.
Yeah,
right?
man.
So what has changed for you? What things are you enjoying that you've seen improve over the past decade, say?
It has changed a ton. Well, as far as my involvement, I work with a specific manufacturer out of Poland.
Okay.
And over the years, basically, I've broken the bike, and then they make it so it doesn't break that way anymore. It's kind of, you know, and I've had some requests over the years like, hey, it'd be really cool with this, or maybe we could strengthen this part of it, you know. And it's been really cool incrementally over time. All that has added up. Mm-hmm. With this bike specific that I ride, that has been a cool process to be a part of.
Yeah.
But overall, my first bike that I got in 2007, really cool bike, could climb anything, really. Fully rigid, though.
Okay.
Yeah, and 20-inch wheels,
right.
You know. And I was taking that bike in the bike park and just getting jarred. So I sold that and bought one of those 4-wheel downhill adaptive bikes. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
They're gravity only,
Yep.
no drivetrain, but just land spider, just crazy suspension. And I've never sent it bigger in my life than when I had that thing. I'm actually starting with my progression now, like starting to go bigger than I used to then. But that bike was insane.
Yeah.
So that's what it used to be. It used to be either or. Either fully rigid bike that you could go explore on and no power assist either then.
Yeah.
You know? And their hub motors were kind of like just coming in then. Or like just gravity only, pretty much relegated to the bike park, you know? And then this bike that I'm on, back then, I want to say it came out in like 2010-ish, was the first bike with both drivetrain and full suspension. And I saw it, and I'm like, that is it.
Yeah. I was showing Pat earlier, like it's bonkers to look at this thing. Like the engineering that goes into it. You have 2 shocks like running in the front of that thing. Like it's bonkers to look at. Like in the engineering that goes into making something like that work has to be like so much involvement, so much work, and so much like paying attention to the athletes and what they're asking for. So
100%.
That's a thing that I'm always like, I'm a gear nerd. Like I really like to see what's changing, what tech is going to be different, what's making the process easier, because I think for a lot, like gear across the board, the goal is to offer a better experience, I think, product to product. It's like, some of this stuff is just cool for the sake of being cool, but I think good gear offers a slightly more improved experience for whatever the person is doing from year to year.
I wouldn't even say slight.
Yeah, it's
Like,
significant for you.
Very significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to be able to trust your equipment is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like when I was breaking it all the time and not trusting the equipment, I was very tentative with it, you know? And now I'm able to trust it more and more.
Right.
And that's a big deal when you're riding hard. And then the introduction of the power assist was another big step.
Yeah.
Now I call it my equalizer.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of adaptive riders like power up their power assist and they're going like, you know, e-bike or e-adventure speed. I keep my power assist powered way down so it's just enough so I could, you know, pace with you. Yeah. You know, it's changed the experience big time.
Yeah. It's funny. I used to be like a lot of people, I think 5-6 years ago, I was an e-bike hater, and I was like, what's the point? Just pedal harder. And then like I had Roy Tuscany on, who's a good friend. And
yeah, I know Roy.
He was like explaining to me, like, let me come on and talk about it. Like, let me explain to you what doors this opens up for other people.
Awesome.
And it was like completely eye-opening. And now like I have an e-bike, I'm like, okay, this is right. I understand the purpose and the place, but it almost took somebody like Roy to come and explain to me what the benefit is, not just for him and adaptive athletes, but for the general public, and how it like improves someone's experience that couldn't otherwise do it. And now I'm looking at these people, like, you know, I run a ski and bike shop, and you see people coming in with these e-bikes that are having the best time ever, that were never able to have that experience and like otherwise wouldn't be doing anything.
I love it.
And it's changed everything for them.
It's the future. It's here to stay, and it's only going to get better and cooler.
Yeah.
You're not even going to be able to tell the difference.
So some of these things now are like even the road bikes. We were just looking at road bikes and Sea Otter. You can't even tell. Like some of those new Scotts and Pinarellos, you don't even know.
Wait, there's power assist road bikes? Mm-hmm. Oh.
Dude, they're fucking bonkers.
Something I don't even know about.
30 pounds, like super lightweight, like, and literally, like if you looked at someone riding that thing on a you would have no clue that it was an e-bike.
That's amazing.
Everything's dialed in, like everything, like battery is like kind of like hidden into the frame. It's clean. Like that is what is going to make it more exciting, I think, for people that just have regular road bikes and want to get into something but are kind of afraid of e-bikes still and afraid of the idea of e-bikes. It's gonna change the way that they go and purchase their next bike, because they're gonna make it a consideration, because it changes what you can do. It opens up a lot.
Totally. Like all my friends in Mammoth, they all rip. They're the best riders I know. Yeah. And they all have e-bikes. Yeah. We just forego the gondola and climb the service roads now. And
you can just do more. And I had another friend, like, because I was still thinking about it a year or two ago, and I was like, I don't really need one. And this dude that I ride with, that's fucking insane. Like, he's so good at riding a bike. He got one. He was like, look, dude, this is the difference. Instead of doing a 15-mile ride, I could do a 40-mile ride. And now I'm like not as tired. I'm ripping the same stuff, and I get to do it multiple. So I'm literally just having more fun. and I'm still just as tired. Like I'm beating the shit out of myself because I'm doing more.
I have to get just as tired. I have to stay very present.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of kick back and let the motor get you up to speed.
Yeah.
And rely on the motor a little more or less.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's taken work to really understand what it feels like to stay ahead of the motor, which I try to do most of the time.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing that and I'm paying attention, then I'm getting my heart rate in the red.
Yeah.
But if I'm not paying attention and maybe being a little lazy, then my heart rate doesn't get it as high as normal if I did not have it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Is there something now, say you look at your bike, Justice, is that the name of your bike? Is that what you just called it?
No.
What did you say?
I don't even
know what you just said. You just called it something.
I don't even know.
What do you want to improve in that product now?
My bike's name is Blue Angel, by the way.
Blue Angel. I thought you just called it Justice. That's what I was saying. Blue Angel is not what I was expecting.
I don't know what I said that sounded like Justice, but her name is Blue Angel.
Blue Angel. Okay, so if you want to get Blue Angel up to whatever that next level is, like what would you like to see for improvements at this point?
That's a great question. I think the next step is angulation.
Okay.
There's a bike out there that does angulate now, the Bowhead, that bike. And that's kind of like the latest and greatest technology and the bike that everybody wants.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to everything. And there's benefits to my bike as well. It's got a lot more clearance, a lot more suspension. It's got a dedicated handlebar.
Okay.
And a hand crank.
Okay.
So there's a benefit there. And I really like being in the more forward position. I feel like I can project in the fall line.
Yep.
And be a little more aggressive with my body.
Okay.
My body can take more stuff, the dynamic suspension of your body. I'm actually getting some of that being up in that position rather than seated. So all that to say there are benefits of pros and cons to both. But the next step with the style of bike that I ride is one that's able to angulate.
Okay.
Be able to accommodate off camber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that you see as like a limitation of what the bike can do.
100%. That's the biggest limitation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Funny.
It's funny, like usually stuff that's black or blue is kind of reversed.
Yep.
Because fall line I'm good.
Yep.
Like point me downhill, like I've got clearance, I've got suspension, I've got a skid plate, I can roll over rock faces, I can take the fall line. But once trails, to reduce the amount of descents, that will traverse. And when trails traverse, that's when you get exposure and off camber, and that's the nemesis of my bike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's kind of switch gears a little bit here and talk about something else that you enjoy a lot in surfing. What does your setup look like for surfing? Why do you enjoy it so much? Like, talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, my setup for surfing, I surf on a board called a wave ski.
Okay.
To anybody, it looks like a surf kayak, basically.
Okay.
But if you flip it upside down and look at it, it's a shortboard.
Okay.
And man, my first one was this huge boat. I want to say it was 10.6, if I remember correctly. It was either 9.6 or 10.6. Either way, big and huge and thick. And now my board now is 7.6, which still sounds big, compared to regular little paper chip surfboards. But if you look at it, it looks really small. Yeah. And it has, it even has like a step rail, so it's like a true rail all the way around now, and it's just a beautiful. It looks like a piece of art to me. We shaped it on the computer for like over months.
That's awesome.
And the computer shaped it. Yeah, it's a cool thing. Yeah, and I have a quick release belt.
Okay.
So I'm strapped in, but it's quick release. So when I eat it, I just flip the belt and I eject.
Yep.
And I have a double bladed whitewater paddle.
Okay. Cool. And what is it about surfing that you still like enjoy, that still draws you to something like that? And I think it's worth mentioning a lot of this stuff, it's more difficult now. Like you're taking extra steps, looking at any adaptive product, it's an extra step. So you have to be committed to going and like, I really want to do this. This makes me happy. This is a thing that I get something out of. So what are you getting out of surfing that you find is so beneficial to you as a person?
Oh man, that's a multi-layered question. Are you saying like there's more logistics and it's harder to do?
Yes.
Yeah. You're totally right.
Yeah.
It is, because there's that sand thing.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Get
There's
across.
just more involved. There's an extra step.
And the board doesn't have wheels. Like I can roll my bike around on the ground. I can't move my board around, you know? And then, try sliding a limp foot through a wetsuit. That's a whole other thing. And have you ever put a wetsuit on sitting down?
I don't think I've put a wetsuit on sitting down. Putting a
so
wetsuit
hard.
on anyway is hard. I feel like I'm breaking my arm to get into the thing sometimes.
Exactly. Have you tried the plastic bag trick?
No.
Put a plastic bag, like a shopping grocery bag, over your foot, and it'll slide right through.
What?
Yeah.
I never even thought about that.
So just keep like a grocery bag in the car and for putting your wetsuit on.
No shit. Okay.
A little trick of the trade. The question is, what do you get out of surfing?
Yeah.
And for me, that question is two-tiered. One, and kind of the basics in general, not just surfing, but anything. The harder something is, the greater the level of satisfaction and appreciation and thankfulness on the other side.
Yep.
For me, surfing is like this. Just to surf for like an hour and a half is like a 5-6 hour ordeal.
Yeah.
With all the before and after and everything. So I don't get to go as often. I got to, text friends and get help.
Yeah.
And, when I'm sitting out there, the way I verbalize this feeling, and I don't even know if this does it justice, I'm not capable of any more thankfulness than the next guy next to me, but the guy next to me has the option of just grabbing his board and running across the tracks and catching a couple waves at sunset,
Yeah.
But with all the logistics and rigmarole to get out there, it's like, I'm out here.
Yeah.
Finally, So there's that.
Yeah.
The fact that it is hard makes it so great.
Yep.
But surfing itself is just different than any other sport. I think one, we talk about having a relationship with nature and being on the trail. Mm-hmm. Well, when you're in the ocean, you're like inside nature. You're completely girded by the water, and all the negative ions and everything that's happening on a level that we don't really understand as a species yet is happening. And then surfing is so hard because it requires understanding, having a grasp of something that's constantly moving and changing and different, that can easily kill you, So having an understanding of the ocean is the biggest part, and I think that's what's most satisfying for me.
Yeah.
Is it tells you that the fact that I can surf with only a fraction of my body working, but someone with their whole body working that has no understanding of the ocean, just it's a crazy endeavor. So I find a lot of satisfaction in that.
Yep.
And just being able to, growing up with the ocean and understanding it.
Yeah.
And having such a relationship with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. No, it totally makes sense, because I think people have that connection with surfing in a way that doesn't apply to a lot of other things, and I'm still struggling to figure out what it is. And I told you this, I'm a terrible surfer. I'm fucking horrible. But I like going out and just getting smashed for a few hours. The level of satisfaction that you get from something like that is difficult and that you're bad at, and you're in the water. It's just a totally different compilation of things that goes into it that I think a lot of people can appreciate, and if they haven't, it's worth doing. You know what I mean? And there's so much more that goes into it. You got to go and, first of all, be in an area where there are waves, one area where you can do it. Mm-hmm. So it becomes this experience that is more. There's more things that are satisfying when you go out and you do the thing that I think people really appreciate without even realizing that they appreciate it.
You're way out of their comfort zone.
For sure.
For most people.
Yeah.
And that's satisfying to exit your comfort zone. Yeah.
We're not fish. We're not seals. It's a totally different thing. You're out there and you're doing this thing that for a lot of us doesn't feel natural.
I love it.
Yeah.
How often do you get to go?
Not often. I'm in New England. It's difficult, and everything. It's cold always, and there's not a lot of waves. So most of the surfing that I've ever done is on the West Coast. It's the majority of when I get to go, and it's such a treat for me that I look forward. If I'm going on a trip and I get to go surfing, that's the highlight of the trip for me, always. No matter what I'm doing, it's like that's a key highlight of whatever it ends up being. Like, it's awesome.
How often do you get to the West Coast?
Often now. Yeah, pretty
You get
often.
to San Diego ever?
No, never.
Got to get you down there.
Yeah, for sure. That's on the list for sure. There's just so much. Like, and we do, like, I don't know, we work a lot of winter events, and what ends up happening to me is all winter I'll be like slammed, and I'm home for, I think I wasn't home for more than a week at a time this whole winter, from basically October to April. Like, I was home for, the max I was home was a week, and not a single time longer than that.
Just on projects?
Projects and doing whatever, like going out there to do interviews or going out for a brand or this thing or that thing. And it's like, I always feel terrible complaining about it. You know what I mean? Because you're like, this is such a crazy opportunity that no one else gets to do. And my girlfriend like gives me shit sometimes because she's like, she works in a courthouse, and she's like, you get to go and do whatever the fuck you want and like have a good time, and this is your job. So it's hard for me sometimes to find that appreciation and like fight myself for the negative of it, like, because I'm like, I'm tired. Like, people asked me to go skiing like a few weeks ago, and I'm like, I'm fucking done skiing. I'm done. I don't want to think about it anymore. I've had my fix. I'm smoked.
That's why we drink so much caffeine.
Yeah, exactly. You're like trying to make yourself get through this stuff, and it's interesting to be in this place now where the things that I used to love doing so much, I still love doing, but I have to manage my energy and manage my commitment to these things in a different way because it's a job.
Yeah. I think for me, like, and I feel like maybe this is human nature, like when we're in one, we want the other.
For sure.
Like when I'm on the road, I want to be home and have my routine.
So bad.
And when I'm at home and in my routine, I want to be on the road.
Yeah, you're going stir crazy just sitting at home.
So my work is to just remind myself that will come.
Yeah.
I'll get home.
Yeah.
Or I'll get on the road, and just to be present in either one instead of like looking forward to the next thing, which is what I have a propensity to do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
How those BCAs treating you?
It
good?
actually is pretty good. Like, I'm not going to lie, I'm not recommending that people mix this with Hop Splash, but it's actually.
So what did you do? You mix BCAAs, like pre-workout drink, with your Hop Splash.
It's called Rocket Pop flavored.
Rocket Hop.
Rocket Hop. Oh, look at you,
go.
branding mind going
So
crazy.
you did. So that turned out a little foamy when you did that.
Yes.
And you got some of the foam on your mustache.
Am I still doing
I
it?
thought maybe you had some gray at the tips. But it was the foam.
That's it.
You just got it all. You got it all.
I hope it's not showing up on camera, but I think.
I hope it is.
That makes one of us.
That's hilarious.
This is maybe a deeper, tougher question, but like take us back kind of 2001. You get injured, and like it changes your life, obviously, right?
Yeah.
How do you stay in the mental space, and how do you manage where you're at emotionally with something like that, to then go and decide, okay, I still want to be an athlete. I still want to go do these things.
Yep.
And it's still worth it to me, no matter how much extra work it is. Like, this is worth doing to me. Because I think people struggle, like with any injury, never mind something completely life-altering, people have a hard time getting out of those like darker spaces where they're like, I want to do these things.
Yeah. That's a really good question. And I used to answer that like, I'm still the same person. You know, and I've come to realize that is not true. Yeah. I wish I could I wish I could say that. But being close to death, it's going to change you. Okay. But I never really had the thought like, oh, I'm still going to do this. I'm still going to do that. It was always, how do we figure this out? I don't recall ever making the decision to still do things. It wasn't a choice that was on the table.
You just did it.
Ever. I cannot. I've racked my brain. I've like gone back in time and tried to remember, how that, and put myself back there and try to remember my thought process. It was always, how are we going to figure this out? What I did do, that I did not know what I was doing at the time, that this was a healing process, and I've realized it way later. I mean, we're talking over a decade later. What I would do, like when I was originally like in the hospital, alone at night and just devastated, I would give myself 10 minutes to just bawl my brains out.
Yeah.
And then I'd watch the clock, and after 10 minutes, I'd call somebody.
Yeah.
And I realized later that is like a very practical tool for healing.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't understand what I was doing. But so that's something I did to help get through it. And then, outside of that, it was just figuring it out.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is just circumstantial. It's not
Right.
like, okay, I need to do this to figure it out. It was just like, okay, I need to figure out how to go to the bathroom now, or I need to figure out how to put socks on.
Yeah.
There's not really a choice there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just kind of fell into the same category. We're like, this is part of my life. I still have to figure out how to do it the same way I do
As far as
anything else.
sports go,
Yeah.
it just was the next step. It just happened.
Yeah.
So it was like I got out of the hospital and I was like, I got to get in the water.
Yeah.
I got to get in the water. And it was a lot of relying on my friends, like, hey guys, let's get in the water. I got to.
What did that support system like? Because you have to have that, because people have to look at you like you're nuts sometimes, right? For doing any of this stuff, like mountain biking, right? Like people have to look at you like,
I don't know.
This dude is still like he's pushing, right? I don't know. Like it's hard to look at it from my perspective, right? Where I'm just like, I have all the respect in the world because you're just, it's figuring it out and there's no other option. Like that mindset is a crazy thing to me, because I think other people see obstacles and other people see solutions, right? And it's just a totally different thing.
That's fair.
You
I guess my only frame of reference is, looking at someone like Trevor.
Yeah.
And I think I see stuff he does and I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
No way ever would I ever do that. So maybe that's my only frame of reference.
Yeah.
People that aren't necessarily, adrenaline junkies or extreme athletes or whatever.
That's more what I mean. Yeah.
Or, and maybe just not as exposed to, something like mountain biking.
Yeah.
And mountain biking at a high level.
Yeah.
And they see someone mountain biking at a high level and there's like, no way.
Yeah.
I would never do that. That's insane.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that's my only frame of reference. But, yeah, I never think about myself being that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm just, like, surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Yeah, I want to kind of go back a little bit to what you said about, like, taking 10 minutes and just, like, bawling your eyes out. Like, that's something that I think has been such a positive since COVID, for example. Like, people are willing to talk about that stuff way more and realizing that it's part of their process of healing and taking care of themselves and being able to just be open and realizing, like, everybody goes through shit and everybody has their own way of handling where their mental is at, you know? Like, so have you felt a change in the way that, like, other people perceive that kind of thing?
I think so, yeah. I kind of credit your generation for that. And now that, the older generation is kind of moving out now where, stoicism was like the norm and the value that was important. Yeah. And now it seems like more with the new generations coming in that, they're, being open and honest and genuine is the value. Yeah. Now that is more important than. Yeah. And like, you look at, maybe an older man and you bring up therapy and like, oh, I don't want that therapy. It's for pussies or whatever. Exactly. Like that mentality. Yeah. Now therapy is really cool.
It's awesome.
And if you're not going to therapy, then it's like, ooh, it's not so cool. Yeah. Or like, say, if I'm, on a date with a girl or whatever, and I bring up therapy, they're like, oh, really? Awesome. Yeah. And it's like, it's an attractive thing now is what I'm saying. Yeah.
It shows that you're comfortable in your own skin to a certain extent and you're comfortable asking for help. Mm-hmm. And that's like, it's funny. Like when I was going through some stuff a couple years ago and I'm looking at it and I'm like, using my parents as a frame of reference. Like my dad is an immigrant, like he's super hardworking. I've only ever seen him work his ass off for his entire life. So I'm like eventually trying to like explain this to him and talk to him about this shit because I've never seen him like acknowledge that or go through it. And he's like, yeah, dude, I go through it all the time. Like I was like crying my eyes out, like plenty of nights. There's plenty of nights and I was like, I just want to quit. Just want to never do anything. I just want to disappear off the face of the earth. But you would never know until people are starting to they're starting to talk about it. And that made me feel so much better about being able to go out there and be like, yeah, therapy's cool. Going to like talk about your emotions is really cool. And being comfortable that everybody else has that kind of stuff going on, it makes a huge difference, I think, to other people listening that have something going on and they feel like they can't get through it. I think that's been a huge beacon for people to just get it and be like, okay, I'm not in this alone. I'm not in this I don't have to just keep everything tight and close to the chest. Because I had taken after that. Like, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to work my ass off my entire life and I don't give a shit. Like, whatever. Everything else I can just put in the corner. And then at some point you break and you're like, I can't just do this forever.
Yeah. I think you just hit the nail on the head. And it comes out in little ways for me. Well, one, it seems like having it, dealing with anxiety and depression is like kind of everybody.
Yeah, for real.
Because I can't tell you how many times I'm like, oh, I have this thought. The recent conversation that comes to mind. I was talking with a friend of mine, and I was talking about, man, whenever I do a podcast, whenever I leave any kind of conversation or event, I always have tons of anxiety about like everything I said. Like, oh my God, I must have sounded pompous. I sounded negative, or all these thoughts start racing through my head, and I automatically think the worst. And my friend is like, oh my God,
yeah,
do the exact same thing. I can't tell you how many times that happens,
right?
And that's dude. It's way more common than we think. I think it's more common than not.
Yeah,
like for someone to
for sure
deal with anxiety and depression. I pretty much think the majority is what I'm finding out.
I used to think that people that didn't have to deal with it or like didn't acknowledge it or whatever were lucky. Like I used to think that those people were lucky, but I think the people that are dealing with it and get through it and figure out a way to manage it now, like looking at it after going through stuff myself, I'm like, no, the people that get through it and figure out ways to manage it are the lucky ones, right? Because everybody goes through something at some point. I think having a healthy relationship with your own emotions and your own, even if it's depression, like depression sucks ass, but it's part of like you have to figure out a way to get through it, and it causes, at least for me, caused a level of being able to just figure it out. Like nothing seemed like it was out of the realm of possibility anymore, because you go through something that's dark or difficult, whether it's an injury or mental or whatever, and you get through it, you're just like, okay, I can do whatever the fuck I want now. Like there's no more doors that are closed.
100%. But like depression sucks.
Yeah.
Yes. But, and this is a new thought I've just recently been kind of digesting. So I'll go through a few days of feeling depressed where I like barely leave the house for say like 3 days, you know? And then I'm like, and I finally get myself out on the trail.
Yeah.
And being on the trail that day after being depressed for 3 days is like, completely the level of joy is like exponentially greater. So yeah, depression sucks, but
there's another side.
On the other side of it is like, so I'm like, okay, maybe I should just like let myself feel depressed.
Yep.
And fully allow myself to and fully engage with it.
Yeah.
Because it is a real and honest thing that happens.
Yeah.
For the purpose of not judging myself and for processing things and having catharsis, experiencing catharsis, but also because that feeling of joy is so much greater. Just selfishly, just cause and effect.
Yeah.
I can have a much better time if I let myself be depressed. Does that make sense? Is that weird?
I think it offers it's a wider range of emotions that you're capable of, right? Like someone put it to me like that a long time ago.
That makes sense.
I never got it, but it's like, it's not like it's any one thing. It's just now you're able to get the full range of what is available emotionally to you, or like expand that range. It's just a different way to look at it. And
that's a really practical way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting thought, and I had never thought about it like that until somebody just put it to me. Like, think about it like anything else. It's like your emotions have ranges, and sometimes you're super angry, sometimes you're super sad, and it's like it's part of being human, where you want to experience that whole range, and I think it's part of it.
But the automatic reaction with well, quote unquote negative emotions, depression, is to put it off, to cover it up, drugs, alcohol, whatever, with activity.
Yeah. Dude.
Like I can, if I feel depressed, I'm like, oh, I need to go ride.
Yeah.
And then I never face my depression, because I feel so much better when I go ride.
Same thing. Yeah.
I'm not healed from that depression though, In a lot of ways, yes, having a relationship with nature and being active outdoors heals a lot.
Yeah.
And can pull us out of a lot. But I think the initial reaction is to be afraid of it, put it off, cover it up, ignore it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to do the same thing. I'm like, I'm going to hammer it out of myself. That was my, like, I'm going to go on a 100-mile ride and I'm going to beat the shit out of myself until I don't feel anything. Right? And it's like some people it's alcohol, some people it's drugs, some people it's beating the shit out of yourself. It's how people initially handle that experience.
But that's a very positive outlet though,
It is.
So like I feel like that's a good thing because I do the same thing. Like I get so much satisfaction with destroying myself.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just, oh my God, I just let anger bubble up to the surface and oh my God,
feel better.
It feels so good. And that's a great outlet.
Yeah.
Definitely. So balance of that for sure.
Yeah. I want to talk to you a little bit about the kind of switching completely on the other side of things, the business aspect of what you do. But one of the first things before we jump into that is what has your relationship with nature changed since this is part of your job now?
Yeah.
Like, how so? Because I struggle with this a lot, right? Where I'm like, I'm going to ride my bike for myself. That's different than how I do for my job, right? And I'm paying attention to content and building this and photos and blah, 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 blah. It's so much, it's different than how I used to look at it as a kid. It's
100%.
like, I'm just going to do the thing. And that's why I'm doing it, is to separate myself from everything else. So how are you dealing with that now?
That's a really damn good question. I've actually never thought about it, and I'm just thinking about it for the first time since you've asked.
Yeah.
I think my first thought is that's like any relationship. If you've got a demanding job, then you have to really focus on cultivating your relationship with someone. When I'm out on the trail working, I'm not really communing with nature. That's not really, I am because I'm out there, but that's not what I'm thinking about. I'm focused. It's very detailed. I'm really paying attention to the trail.
Yeah.
And, measuring things and experimenting, sessioning sections and taking notes and pictures and talking, if I'm on trail with an actual builder, we're talking about, okay, here's our choices for this, and I got to take notes because I'm going to have to submit that in a very detailed report. It's work.
Yeah.
It's really fun work and amazing, and it's really satisfying. But no, I have to take time to cultivate my relationship with nature and go out separately.
Yeah.
We all laugh at the term tree hugger.
Yeah.
But I literally am a tree hugger. I swear to God, like I don't necessarily hug trees, but I touch them.
Yeah.
And I make sure to take my gloves off and put my hand on the ground.
Yeah.
And I after a couple seconds, I'm like ready to go, but nope, 90 seconds.
Yeah.
I have to keep my hand on the dirt and even sometimes dig it into the dirt and hold it there for 90 seconds, or like put my hand on a tree or something, and like make myself do those sorts of little things to cultivate that relationship and feel grounded is the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a struggle constantly for me, but like lately I've kind of put it to myself where I'm like, I'm not taking my phone, going to just ride. I'm not bringing a camera. I'm not bringing anything. I'm just going to do it because I enjoy it. And that, like, for me, especially lately, because I was, you're doing this all the time and it's work, and you're like, you want to build content, you want to build the brand. You're like forcing everything so that it can be more, right? Because you're feeding this machine, whether it's social media or sponsors or whatever. So now you try to separate it in a way that's like, this is just for me. And I think it's changed the way that I look at my job, right? Because now it's like I have the job part, and even though it's technically the same as just going for a ride, it's a totally different feeling.
It's completely different.
Yeah. It's changed. Yeah. It's changed a lot.
Unplugging, I'm glad you said that, is a big part of it.
Yeah.
That's why my sign off on my videos is, now it's your turn.
Yeah.
Put your phone down and go get your hug from Mother Nature.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with this thing. The Apple Watch. I love this thing. This enables me to like do a bunch, the stuff and everything, but I'm a little too connected with it. And I've been taking it off a lot more.
Yeah.
And for like days at a time. And I think I might
Yeah.
just be wearing it for rides and stuff,
Yeah.
and not every day. It's kind of too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about doing the Apple Watch thing, but then I'm like, I don't want to be connected. Like, I don't want... And I like phone for emergencies is great, and sometimes I'll just stick it in my pocket or like in my bag, and I'll airplane mode and nothing on, and I'll just like discipline myself to not do it. And like I finally got like this smart watch to like test stuff with.
Garmin?
Suunto.
Oh, you got Suunto.
And it's cool. Like it's really rad, but it's nice because I don't... If my phone's off or my phone's like on airplane mode or whatever, it doesn't do anything negative.
I need to put it on silent more often.
Yeah, you just don't get the stuff, and it keeps you separate from it because it's difficult. Technology is great because it allows so much more access, communication. You can find more trails, you can do more stuff, but it's also like you're connected. You're like now connected to the entire world because I find myself pulling out my phone and just looking at, like, I'm scrolling Instagram at the trailhead, and I'm like, for what? Like, what am I doing? And it's interesting because that has become a really important maintenance thing for me because, like, I don't know, I hate the word influencer, but like you're doing this stuff that you're talking to an audience at all times, right? So everybody thinks like you're so attached to your phone, and really, like, I look at my phone like it's the fucking devil. Like it's the worst thing in the entire world to me.
It's devil and God at the same time.
Yeah,
it's good and evil both.
Yeah.
Because your friends, your family, your people, they want to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also you inspire people to do what you're doing, to have permission to do what you're doing and be stoked. And
do it as a job, right? Like, I think that's a thing.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine put it this way a long time ago. There was some shit going on, and he was like, he's defending these people that are kind of getting shit for, like, it was like about PPP loans and COVID, and like how as a athletes taking PPP loans, even though they're just a singular person, as like a business, right? Like, there was a bunch of shit about this for a while. And he put it as like, he's a photographer. He was like, I'm sick of people telling anyone else like what their job is allowed to be. It's like, I can do whatever I want. If I can get paid and I can make it a career and I want to do this, that's my job. No one else gets to tell me
no
otherwise.
rules.
Yeah. Like, we live in an era when you can be your own boss, and it doesn't take very much. Like, it takes a lot of effort, but you could decide to do that tomorrow and make it a career. It's like very opening. It's a very eye-opening thing for a lot of people.
I love that. Yeah, you don't have to sit at a desk.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. If you don't want
8 to 5. Yeah.
If you don't want to, don't do it.
Yeah.
Some people like it. Like, some people like to have a job that they can just leave, and they can just 5 o'clock, they're done. No more. Like,
there is beauty to that.
There is, for sure.
You clock out, and it's not a thought anymore. Like, we don't have that with our jobs.
I don't want that. Like, for me, I've never looked at that. I understand why people like it, but I've never wanted that in my life. It feels restraining.
Do you make sure to take time to like completely check out though?
I do, and I'm better at it now. But like a few years ago, when I'm like, I'm just gonna hustle the shit out of everything, it's like that's what put me in a darker place because I was not willing to like stop. I'm like, because I've always had that. Like I said, I watched my parents work super hard as a kid, like, and make something out of nothing, and I was like, how do I have to keep pushing that envelope because that's what I did. And then eventually I realized, like, I need that time to click out. Like, I need to figure out a way to, because otherwise I'm going to hate it. Like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a 9 to 5.
I respect the hustle, man.
Yeah. The hustle's great, but it's also like being able to not do anything is great too. So,
should we switch to beers?
That's where I was going to go next.
I want a pale ale. Pale ale's become my favorite. Oh, you're going Summerfest, huh? Interesting. That's right. Are you a lager guy? Because the Japanese lager style, you were like really into that. Yeah.
Big fan.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish they'd keep that forever, but
I should have opened that in the microphone because that's like the best sound on the planet. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, Sierra.
Yeah. Last thing I kind of want to ask you about, because it's important to me. People seem to take interest in this part of it a lot. Talk to me about the business aspect of what you do, how you decide, okay, I'm going to charge X dollars for this. this is how I need to protect myself as an individual person in my business. What does that look like as you were figuring out how to monetize this kind of thing and how to figure out like I need to be able to support myself? Because I think we do all this stuff because we really enjoy it. And sometimes that gets a little murky where you're trying to figure out how to make this thing that you love doing your job.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a good businessman, I've learned. I'm an athlete and a salesman.
Yeah.
You know, that's the stuff I can do good at. So the business end of things has been a struggle for me. And luckily I have a really good tax guy that helps me, really helps me keep things organized. But there are several aspects of the things I do. I don't just do consulting.
Yeah.
I'm the U.S. dealer for those bikes. That's a big part. That's what I do every morning. I wake up, I grab my coffee, I go to the computer, and I perform the customer service and sales for selling those bikes. I actually really enjoy that.
Yeah.
For some reason, I like putting invoices together. And, you know, and when I used to hate when someone had a problem, like, but now I'm like, okay, how can I show them, you know, how much I can help them, you know? And I've kind of just switched my mindset on that. So I actually really enjoy like solving customer issues and stuff. So there's that part of it, and monetizing that. It's a for-profit business. It's selling bikes. So there's no formula to the monetization of that.
Figure that out,
I also do speaking.
Yep.
Which really just COVID really hurt that.
For sure.
I was making a good chunk and doing really well with speaking before COVID. And then, I mean, I had probably close to like $100,000 worth of events scheduled for 2020.
Yeah.
For 2019. Cut.
Completely.
I lost $100,000 first year of COVID.
Oh my God.
Immediately.
That's fucking crazy.
Right? On the books, booked gigs, ready to go. Cut.
All gone.
All gone. So that was kind of gnarly, but luckily the bike industry took off.
Yeah.
So, and I just started selling a ton of bikes.
Yeah.
And was fine.
Yeah.
You know, it was not what I ever thought it, you know, it like my income stream flip-flopped.
Yeah.
And so, and then with the consulting, you know, that's easily monetized too, because project managers have budget.
Yeah.
And it's something that's expected. If you have a consultant, it's very expected and reasonable thing to pay your consultant. What's weird, though, is a lot of people, project managers, are sometimes, not project managers per se, but in general, it's kind of expected if you're an adaptive writer that you work for free.
Why?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know the
That
answer.
seems ridiculous.
To me, as a professional, it does. But I've kind of seen that I've come across that a lot. People call me and ask me, you know, for questions, and because it's for benefiting people with disabilities, that's therefore should be charity work.
Yeah.
And my response to that is, hey, look, this is very important work. I understand. I will do it for free. I will, if it doesn't cost me anything, you know, and if you're honest about your budget.
Yeah.
You know, and that seems to get a pretty good response. So I'll work on a sliding scale, basically, you know, and so that's been I've done jobs for free. I'm like, okay, cover my expenses and let me make a video for my channel, and let's have a group ride and let me collect email addresses. You know, let's find a way to you know, monetize it indirectly in that way. You know, and then I'm stoked with my my channel and social media. I mean, I'm a peon, but I've been like getting little checks here and there from you know, Amazon affiliate codes and from Facebook and stuff, like getting little checks from posting reels and stuff. Yeah. And so there's been a little surprise monetization there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's opened up some stuff for people, which is really cool.
So all that adds up.
How do you not take it personal when people are like, yeah, we don't want to pay you, or like, it's not worth it? Genuinely, because like it's your business, right?
I take it personally.
Yeah, I do too. I'm like, fuck off, dude. Like, it's not about, the thing is like, it's not about the money. right? It's about what you're offering in exchange for, like, it's your services. It's almost like somebody doesn't respect your time, because I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. I'm not
But I
going to
think
go
it's
to a
worth
masseuse and be like, hey, massage me for free.
Yeah, I need it. Help me out. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not, you don't expect it, but
Yeah.
it's interesting to see how that gets taken. And I take it personally because I'm like, I would do it for free. If it's the right
Yes.
person in the right situation, I have zero problem, and I'll never think about it again. I won't ask for a dime. But if you're like trying to get something where you're monetizing it, I never understand why people think that that's like an okay trade.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're actually benefiting from your work. Yeah.
Right.
That's even the next level I wasn't even considering. I do take it personally. That's my initial reaction, but I have to check myself. I don't ever show that, of course, and just realize, okay, this is just a matter of education, and I can be kind.
Yeah.
And educate,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough because, like, there's great partners out there that will support you, support the vision, and do what you want to do, like Sierra Nevada, right? Like that are great supporters of what you want to do and understand what the goal is. And then sometimes you get these people, they sound all promising, and then you're like, they're expecting zero invoice at the end of the day, and I'm just like, I don't understand.
And I've found that having that conversation first is really important.
Yeah.
And it's awkward. I don't like talking about money.
Me neither.
I'm bad at it,
Yeah.
and I wish I could just do stuff for free,
Yeah.
But having that conversation first, I'm like, hey, look, here's my normal rate for this stuff. And then, if they're surprised, that's one thing. If they're not surprised, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it goes. On the athlete side, how do you manage sponsors, partners, that kind of thing? Because I think that's the most difficult. And I know there's a lot of athletes that listen to the show that are like, whether they're aspiring athletes or just starting that journey, they're just starting to figure it out, or even ones that have been doing it forever and still haven't figured out like what it is and how other people, because I think being open about that is really important for people that are listening, because it's almost been like a hush-hush thing for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, no one really talks about what their rates are, and no one understands like how they charge for. Like, it's been. That's another thing that I think has changed, where people are willing to talk about it, because it's not. You brought up money before, it sounded douchey, and now it's like you're willing to talk about it because you're sharing information with other people and try to help them and understand what the situation is.
Yes, I like this question a lot, because it's very practical things that we can do.
Yeah.
As athletes. Or not even as athletes, as anyone who's looking to be sponsored in any way. The days of just the direct paid sponsorship, are pretty much over, unless you're elite. I have a very lucky situation with Sierra. They're an awesome company that just wants to support me,
Yeah.
But that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
Sponsorships are mostly project-based now.
Yep.
Like, if you have to be the one-man band, you have to do it all. Like, if you can put a deck together for a cool project that you want to do and bring it to a company, or numerous companies usually,
Yep.
And be able to present it, that's the best way to get sponsored, really. And that's what companies are looking for. From my experience anyways, project-based stuff.
They're looking for a plan.
A plan, yes.
It's like sometimes it's really as simple as that. And if the plan doesn't align, cool, it's an easy no. Right? And you understand, like, it's just not what they're trying to do right now. And
there's
fine.
other companies out there.
I have zero issue with that. You know what I mean? Like, I'll happily put together a deck, and if it doesn't work out, awesome, we'll try again on the next thing. And that's part of it. But I think the business side of it, because it's been so murky, it's like, you don't even know. When I first started this, I didn't know you needed a deck. Sending an email with like A, B, C, D. Here's what maybe I can do, and maybe we'll try this. And it just doesn't. Yeah,
Yep.
You need a plan. You need a deck, and you need to be like, here's what you get. Here's what I get. This is transactional, and here's what it is. Even if it's a passion project, you got to understand like there's pieces to it.
Yep. And I'm a different athlete. I'm not a competitive athlete. So a competitive athlete is going to be different. They're going to have their race schedule and all this stuff. Like, here's my race schedule. Here's what I need to do that. For my travel expenses and everything like that. For other types of athletes, the adventure type athletes like me, like, okay, here's an example. I'm obsessed with orcas. I know, random, right?
Okay.
I just hit you with that off the side. I'm freaking obsessed with orcas. That's what my guilty pleasures at night. I watch orca videos and van builds.
Sick.
Yeah. And so I really, really like bucket list item, paddle with orcas.
Yep.
You know? And so I've put a project together of, you know, me going to the Pacific Northwest, San Juan Island chain, and camping for a month in my van on Vancouver Island and paddling every day, you know, with the hope of eventually getting close. It's you have to get close to an orca in a kayak is like once in a lifetime crazy lucky thing.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't happen. You know, so it's like more about quantity. You know, you just got to be out there all day, every day, and hope it happens. So I put this, you know, deck together for this project and proposing it to sponsors. Boom, project sponsored. You know, years of, you know, shopping it around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's got to be super exciting to do something.
So exciting.
Yeah.
Actually went last year up there and total fail.
Nothing.
Well, nothing, yes, but also so many logistics. You know, I'm not the type of person to do like a lot of pre-research, you know. I kind of learn as I go.
Same.
And so that's kind of what my trip up there last year was more like active discovery, you know. My paddle apparatus, I had this got this inflatable fishing kayak with a seat.
Yeah.
Fail.
Yeah.
Doesn't work for me. Too hard to inflate, too hard to move around. It's like 70 pounds.
Yeah.
And unrealistically difficult to actually paddle. Ferry system, you have to understand. You got to know where the orcas are.
Yeah.
I was in complete wrong areas, like all the above. Just fail.
Yeah.
It was an awesome trip. I did a lot of awesome paddling, met cool people,
Yeah.
and learned the whole area.
Right. Yeah, but you need that. You need to figure it out
Yeah.
before you figure it out.
So now going up again this summer.
Sick.
Yeah.
I hope you find an
Sierra
orca.
Nevada's helped me out.
Sick.
Yeah.
Love that. Look at Sierra Nevada getting all these plugs right now. And not just because Pat's in the room.
Right.
So, yeah, it's really it's funny that people find interest, especially in outdoor sport, like in things that are completely unrelated. In your case, I guess it's a little related, but the things that like people gravitate towards it's always really interesting to me. The things outside of like outdoor sports, or even how they connect, like why it's those things, or what makes you attached to those ideas.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems completely random.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of what I've allowed. I'm glad you said that, because this is also a new thing I'm discovering too, that although it seems random, if I have that thought, if I have that feeling, I can like explore that. It doesn't matter that it's random. You know, there's no rules, like you said, about what you do for work. There's no rules,
Yeah.
you know? And if you're like curious about something, that's a little like signal to check that out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. It's interesting. I got to figure out how to make some of the weird shit that I'm into work as a job, or like
What's
make it work.
what's some of the weird shit you're into?
I don't know. Like now it's been, it changes all the time. And I think, and it's completely unrelated. You know what I mean? Like lately I've been into like Greek mythology and like watching old men on TikTok sell Rolexes. Like it's been like very weird shit, but there's got to be some kind of, because I don't care about watches. Like, but now I've been watching like TikToks of old Jewish men haggle for Rolexes in New York. You know what I mean? Like,
That's funny though.
It's crazy. Like, it's just completely unrelated. Never a thing I've been interested in. That just comes out of nowhere. It just hits. You're like, okay, like what's gonna hit next? That stuff is always bizarre to me.
Well, you give yourself permission to pursue that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I want to make that stuff connect yet. But if I find something that's weird and that does connect, I'll certainly take advantage of it. I think
That just might be one of those guilty pleasure. It's not a guilty pleasure, but just one of
It's
those things
certainly,
like
for me, it's a guilty
random TikTok scrolling at night to
Yeah.
zone out. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
it separates me from a lot of the other shit that I do. So I love that shit.
I love
But,
TikTok, man.
Yeah, people hate TikTok. A lot of people hate
There's a
TikTok.
lot to hate about it.
Yeah.
There is.
For sure.
But dude, people we were talking about in the beginning, like renewing my faith in humanity.
Yeah.
People are fucking funny
Awesome. They're funny
and creative,
Yeah.
and I have found it on TikTok.
Yeah.
Like People are so freaking funny.
They just come out of shit out of
Yeah.
nowhere. Have you seen that girl that makes those she redoes brand logos?
No.
Dude, they're
I need to see this one.
awesome. She redid Windows brand logo or something like that, and she was like, it doesn't make any sense. There's not enough windows on this thing. So she just made in Paint drew a window, and now she's working with Microsoft and working with.
That's
they're
brilliant.
sending her custom design shit. She worked with Fruit by the Foot. She's like, there's no feet on Fruit by the Foot, so why is there not feet on this branding? Whoever did this did a terrible job, and it's hilarious.
Well,
it's
that's you.
thing.
That's you.
So
I like the middle finger guy.
it's middle finger guy.
The fuck you guy.
No.
He just finds random ways to say fuck you. It's so funny. It'll be opening up a present, or riding his bike and flip the wheel and flip a sign.
I do know that guy.
There's the and then there's the Midwest guy that how do you he'll discover little practical things for life.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
he's
yeah.
always for fuck's sake. Yeah. It's some little life hack, little life hacks she'll discover. That guy's people are hilarious.
It's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits.
All the Frenchie videos,
Yeah.
French Bulldog videos, I could watch those all day.
Oh yeah, yeah. My feet is nothing to do with skiing anymore, or nothing to do with biking anymore.
Oh
It's
no,
completely-
nothing to do with mountain biking.
It's one video every 100 is about bikes now. It's hilarious. So
Or the thing when people are putting microphones up to their little French Bulldogs' butts.
yeah,
And then they fart, it scares them. It's so great.
that's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good in that stuff right now. There's a lot of negative, but there's a lot.
People
of
are
really
funny, man, and that's what I'm trying to focus on.
good. Yeah,
People are funny and extremely creative and brilliant.
yeah.
Yeah.
My last thing for you, where can people find you? Where can people find your channel? Where can people connect with you more if they want to consult with you, if they want to reach out, if they just want to chat? Where do people get you?
People can find me at the bar at Sierra Nevada Brewery Company.
As of right now, yeah.
Drinking pale ale off the tap, which is amazing, by the way. My Instagram is probably the best, JP McGhee.
Yep.
And there's an H after McGhee.
Okay.
JPMCGHEE.
McGhee.
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 JP McGhee is the best. Theunpavement.org website for more information on the project.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome. YouTube channel.
YouTube channel.
Okay.
YouTube has handles now.
Sure does.
JP McGhee on YouTube.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Awesome. I appreciate the time, man. This has been great.
Thank you. You guys are fun.
Yeah, of course, man.
We're going to ride tomorrow.
We're going to ride bikes.
Yes. All right. Cheers.
Thanks for listening. That was a really cool conversation. I had a really good time with Adam. Adam, if you're listening, man, I'm so stoked to be friends with you now. And thanks again to Sierra Nevada Brewing Company for putting it all together. And thanks to you for listening and listening to the thing in its entirety. I can't tell you how much that means to me. If this podcast affected you in any way, please share it with someone you think could benefit from hearing it. At the very least, hit like. And if you want to engage with me, leave a comment. I respond to everything. I read all the comments, and I really, really appreciate it. Until next time, cheers. GoPro, stop recording.